Hey guys, it's Jason Rzucidlo reporting from the Encore Las Vegas for the 2024 Automotive News Retail Forum. Coming up next, we'll have a panel discussion called How to Prepare for the Uncertain EV Market.
2 years ago, I think we were all in Vegas. It seemed like EVs were the buzz. Everyone's excited about them. Boy, this is, that's all anybody seemed to talk about at NADA 2 years ago. 2 years later, there just seems to be this malaise that has kind of set over the industry in 2023. What's happening?
I think that adoption pace was a little bit exaggerated. And I think a lot of the manufacturers were very aggressive in wanting to switch over to 100% battery electric vehicles. And I think for the general public, it was all the map up on the screen. You got the blue zones where they're red hot, the West Coast, those pockets where we are in Columbus, Ohio, in the Midwest. A little bit more hesitation. You have the climate factors, it's cold, what's the charging infrastructure going to look like, how do I charge it in my home? So as that education increases, I think instead of it being something where we pictured a lot higher percent of sales in the next 3 to 5 years, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than that. But it is here, it's here to stay. It's just been a little bit slower for some of the public to really want to engage with it.
EVs are up and down. We sell better than 10 a month, but less than 20, so certainly nowhere near where we'd like for it to be. But it was talked about earlier that the higher earners are usually the early adopters, and then we told those guys not long ago, middle of last year, that they were not going to use the tax credit anymore to make too much. And we already pay more in taxes, and then we're not deserving the tax credits. So it took those people out of the market for that reason as well. And then it confused the rest of the consumers with where's the battery being sourced, where's it being sourced from? And so when you create the confusion, you take it out of their consideration when you look at it. So we don't talk about that credit or that being the elements of it, but it was certainly a key driver in the pullback of EV adoption.
Our EV sales in January were up 57% over January of last year. A lot of that was driven, we did start sale of our EV9, so we've got a new vehicle that's breaking into a new segment of a family 3-row SUV. And I think the industry is kind of an inflection point. It's doubled in volume over the years, and now maybe we don't see that ability to go from 1.1 million to 2.2 million sales this year. But I think there'll be products and segments and geography across the country. In Colorado, we're seeing an explosion of growth. They just passed the $5,700 state tax credit. We can't keep EVs in stock in that state right now.
And how does that compare to other states? I mean, is it again just kind of by region? That's happened in other areas, like maybe Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, the map that was brought up earlier is pretty much representative of where our sales are today. We are seeing pockets. Florida does well for us, Texas, Colorado, obviously the West Coast states. We've got some dealers that are a little more advanced in pushing EVs in their market. So you have somewhere in Oklahoma where a dealer's somehow figured out how to sell 15 to 20 of these a month. And they've got salespeople who teach it, push it, help people adopt it. So a little bit of everything.
Melinda, what are the numbers kind of saying? What are you seeing from the numbers perspective, the data about where we've been and kind of how you see things progressing in the coming years?
We show right now that we're about 8% of sales are EV. From a finance standpoint, there's still a lot of questions, I think, around financing of EVs and the whole consumer transparency. You brought up Colorado, which is where I live. And I think from a consumer standpoint, it's a bit challenging because if you go online, everyone wants to go online and just configure everything online. What's your payment? What's your exact payment? And at least in Colorado, you kind of can't do that because you might qualify for this credit, you might qualify for this credit, your payment might be this, it might be that. You just don't know. But from a number standpoint, adoption is still relatively low. You already mentioned the early adopters. It's only about 1.7% of households have an EV. The numbers are still low, but like the scrappage is higher. The ownership length is significantly lower. Average length of ownership is less than 3 years for an EV.
And then I think we were together at a Financial Services Association conference earlier. After 3 years, how many go back to EVs and how many go to back to an ICE?
Yeah, so we were looking at, again, that length of ownership. It's like 2.87 years versus 13 for ICE, so pretty big difference. It was 43% of EV buyers when they dispose of the EV they do go back to another EV. But 41% go back to an ICE. The other 15 are like, other fuel types and such, but yeah.
You kind of talked a little bit about EV tax credits and the confusion over that, right? And I think there's hopefully some clarity coming in this year and all. How big a factor do you think that is in consumers' reluctance to jump into the EV market?
I think consumers have an affordability equation that they look at when they're shopping. 2 years ago, there was so much extra money in the marketplace, the economy was good, and we had consumers buying both ICE and EVs that were the higher priced vehicles. We just couldn't keep in stock. They were just really hot. Where the economy is today, the way people are having a budget or when they look at the numbers, I think that the tax credit, if it ran smoothly and it was understandable and it was simple to process and they could really understand that, I think we'd see a little bit of a spike as long as the affordability was competitive with the equivalent ICE vehicles. Because gas prices really haven't gone up. We're at a good market for the gas price. When you look at that 3-year equation of total ownership, consumers aren't really wanting to pay more for battery electric than they need to for ICE.
Consumers doing their research, they do their research on, but in that research they also create a list of questions. And that list of questions gets funneled back to that salesperson when they come in for them. And then that salesperson will spend the most time with that customer selling them an EV, or more time selling them an EV than he would an ICE, because they don't have as many questions. And yet the EV, even if we sell the stickers, get the least amount of margin, the least amount of gross, and the least amount of percentage of gross in the commission that he's going to make off of it, and he's going to spend the most time doing it. So he doesn't want to push that EV either. So rather than answer those questions, when the customer comes in and asks about an EV, he says, well, let me show you what he's going to do with something that he can make. So that's the pay plans that we have out there. That's the reality of it. There's a lot of things that ties into why the EVs become convoluted a bit. And that's just one of those elements.
Can I jump in on the tax credit issue? I have teams of people trying to track who's eligible for tax credits and what you have to do to qualify for them. And I think that confusion amongst the customers who are shopping, I can't keep track of which brands and models qualify for it. Now they're saying they're going to get the sourcing of materials and they're going to qualify for it from May. And I think people are just confused, and it stops some of that retail shopping, which is really a shame because EVs are fantastic vehicles. They're fun to drive. They're great quality. Awarding Kia's last 2 EVs have won North American Utility of the Year awards. They're quiet. They're fast. They're fun. So I think after some of this settles down a little bit, you may see a little bit more shopping and return towards the EVs. But the government has created so much confusion on this right now that it's hard for all of us to keep up with it.
Well, and that then leads to the question of what's this election going to do to the EV market. I saw a very interesting slide at the finance conference the other day where it broke out the EV adoption states by political party. So the Trump states, very low EV adoption. The Biden states, very high EV adoption. So based on how the election goes, that could completely change everything as far as incentives and where the EV market's going to go.
From the dealer standpoint, anytime we do launch any new marketing campaign, it always starts internal. Right? You want all the employees and all the people involved to understand what the marketing message is and why. We like to encourage all of our staff to go out and test drive it, go out and take an EV home if you want to, and make sure that you're creating advocates within. Because we've had to spend a lot of money when it comes to charging across all of our brands. In fact, most of our brands' facility requirements, they require you to have the different level chargers, and we're paying a lot of money to put these things in. So we don't want to wait 5 years to get the earn back from all this money we're investing. We have to be able to try to create a market ourselves, and that always starts internally by creating advocates, making sure the employees truly understand. And the techs especially, you got the whole ICE techs that are used to working with grease dripping on their hands, and they don't like these EVs, and they don't, let them take one home for a minute. Let them come back and talk about, how did you like that acceleration? How easy was it to charge them? And overcome their objections before they go out and start talking to other employees and start talking to customers.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a simple answer to that. I think we've developed a very robust business strategy to refresh and grow our trying to get incremental growth on EVs. So that's the best we can do right now, right? Continue to prop up our dealers by the profitable ICE vehicles they sell and try to get new customers who are UIO based. And when the economic equation changes and there's more profitability on EVs for everybody, then our dealers will have more volume and a base to support that transition.
If we go out to a vehicle that's, he's got 180 days, I got 120 days inventory, you go out to some of those vehicles that has an ICE, it's supposed to be out of gas, it's running a dead battery. But you can't just put a charge in an EV and take a customer for a test drive. If it's not charged, it ain't going anywhere, it's going to be there for 210 days. And so we have to do a better job preparing ourselves, but I need the manufacturer and the government to work together to where we don't have to calculate the incentive and who gets it, who doesn't, to where it's reflected on MSRP.
You have to consider how many households actually have a garage. How many households, who in the room actually parks their car in your garage? I know I do. But I'm the only person on my street, my entire neighborhood, that actually parks my car in the garage. Apartments, storage. I have a 120-year-old house. I can't have an EV. My house would explode to put the power in. So, what do these people do? So, getting, 30, 40, 50%, I'm a little leery on some of those figures.
People are buying them, maybe not as quickly as we thought. What do you think needs to happen to move the needle a little bit to kind of maybe get it back to where there's significant growth month over month?
I think the next couple of years are going to be a little bit rough, right? I mean, I think there's about 40 odd nameplates in the EV market today. It's going to double probably in 2 years, have 80 plus nameplates. So every manufacturer is coming with multiple models. Some of that's good, right? It's going to be new segments. It's going to be more affordable price points. It will draw more people in. But we still have the political uncertainty. We still have charging infrastructure uncertainty. At some point in the future will be an inflection, right? Cars will be affordable. There'll be a lot of segments that it covers. The infrastructure will come into place. There'll be more certainty around government regulations and tax credits. But I think we're in for a rough year or 2 years as we transition.
Your EV buyer, the new car buyer is not your everyday buyer anyway. Your new car buyer is already a very prime consumer. They've got financing options. EV is even more common. The average credit score for an EV buyer is at 782. So it's definitely a premium consumer. But one thing I know that we haven't touched on, and I'm actually curious about your guys' input, the used EV market. I hear a lot of uncertainty. I'm hearing anecdotally of dealers saying, hey, I don't want to take it into used EV. So what happens to all of, when consumers are coming back around, what happens to the used market?
EVs are depreciating much faster than ICE vehicles and hybrids are. So there's a strong lease program to make that affordability equation work. And 2 to 3 years from now, when EVs will be stronger, go ahead and set those residuals high so we can get some butts in the seats and get these cars on the road. That person that drives 20,000 miles a month isn't buying an EV anyways. They're lower mileage drivers, at least in our market. And the other thing that's we're patiently waiting on is for the battery technology to get to a point where there's lithium-ion batteries that are full of liquid that in the wintertime when it's 0 degrees out, they can't charge fast. The issues happening with those. There's technology coming with solid-state batteries that have a lot longer range. And I think as that progresses also, that's going to make more consumers be more comfortable enter the market. So the next couple of years, it's us marketing ourselves, it's creating the advocates, it's hoping for some strong lease programs, and really guerrilla warfare as far as training our people to know that we need to sell these. We've invested in the infrastructure, we need to get the turn moving, and hopefully the affordability equation is somehow solved.